the Lord's servant, a little uncomfortable in her home country, a long seafaring journey and several stops along the way, a chronic illness and no answer from the Lord. Can a prophet be discouraged? No, she learns to wait. Our confidence must be in God. And out of suffering comes great vision, Christian education, missions to the islands, the health ministry, and health food production. What would she say if she could see God's faithful servants growing her legacy today in the South Pacific? At the dedication of Battle Creek College, Seventh-day Adventist Church co-founder Ellen G. White described a vision given the day before in which she saw printing presses in different countries publishing the message. When James, her husband, pressed her to name the countries, she said she could not recall the names. "Oh yes," she said, "I remember one. The angel said Australia." The South Pacific region of the Seventh-day Adventist Church includes 18 countries: New Zealand, Australia, Papua New Guinea, and numerous islands throughout the South Pacific Ocean. Sydney is one of the most scenic and livable cities in the world. Located on Australia's eastern coast, the city embraces one of the world's largest natural harbors. Sydney is one of the globe's major cities and one of the most important for finance in the Asia Pacific. Rambling nature and national parks weave through extending suburbs, meeting the ocean at the harbor. Residents are proud to be known as Sydneysiders and constitute the most multicultural city in Australia and indeed one of the most diverse in the world. Soft sandy beaches and a mild sunny climate see locals and tourists heading out for leisure activities most days of the year. The iconic constructions that identify Sydney in any lineup of cities are, of course, the beautiful Sydney Harbour Bridge and the famous Sydney Opera House. Situated on Bennelong Point on the harbour front, the Sydney Opera House is Australia's most recognizable building. The billowing white roofs almost set sail to this internationally acclaimed structure as the ocean's traffic glides quietly by day and night. The half-domes represent multiple performance venues that together form one of the busiest performing arts centers in the world. The Opera House was designed by Danish architect Jørn Utzon, also a keen sailor. An international design competition had been launched and over 220 entries from 32 countries were received. Utzon won the bid. The government of New South Wales authorized the project in 1958. Utzon was to direct the construction which, to his distress, began before the design process was complete. Utzon's vision had been to create a sculptural form resembling the sails of the myriad of yachts in the harbor. The roof tiles were a major element, and it is said that there are over 1 million tiles. Utzon spent 12 months developing the tiles with one of the best ceramic factories in the world. American architect Louis Kahn once said, "The sun did not know how beautiful its light was until it was reflected off this building." The glass wall ribs are another interesting design feature. Utzon drew inspiration from nature with the glass wall ribs resembling birds in flight. In 1965, difficulties arose between Utzon and the local government. Arguments about cost and the interior design escalated, and the situation reached a crisis point in 1966. The government refused to pay Utzon further, and he resigned with the podium in place and the roof structure nearly complete. For Utzon, this was a disaster for his vision for the building. In 1973, the opening ceremony was held without him. He chose never to visit Australia again, and up to the day he died in 2008, he never again saw the largest and most beautiful project of his life. 100 kilometers, or 62 miles north of Sydney, in the small town of Corumba, lies a house named Sunnyside. This is the house that Ellen White called home for most of her 9 years in Australia. She had been asked by the General Conference, the governing body of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, to leave the United States of America in order to work in Australia for a period of 2 years. It's never easy changing continents. Her initial testimony was that she experienced many sleepless hours in the night, and it was a time of continual anxiety, suffering, and burden-bearing.
When she came down to Australia, she moved away, and I'll speak quite openly, she moved away from the tensions that she experienced back home, the disappointments, the experience, the criticisms. She arrived here in a new country. And in this country, she had opportunity to cast the vision to a greater picture.
Ellen White did not quite understand what the purpose was for her coming to Australia. She arrived here in December 1891, and 1892 became one of the most discouraging periods in her life.
She became very ill. The doctors suggested that she would not function, that she would not walk again. If you read the entire correspondence from that period, you can see that human struggle. She pleads with God, God, where are you? Why are you not responding to my prayers? What I have picked up that during those crucial moments, she began to focus on the biblical story. Guess which story? The story of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. And during that moment, she focuses on the fact that there's a kind of delay. Jesus did not respond immediately. And she begins to develop this idea that even if we don't see God's response immediately, we need to continue to trust His promises.
Her time here in this very house would be the period in her life where she would write the most important of her literary works. During this time, she worked on, amongst others, The Desire of Ages, Steps to Christ, Education, Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing, Christ's Object Lessons, and The Great Controversy. Soon, Ellen White would realize the reason for her long journey across the ocean, and an intended stay of 2 years would become 9 years. It would be the time where she would inspire local people to start educational programs, health care facilities, and health food production and marketing. The headquarters of the South Pacific Division are located in Sydney's suburb of Wahroonga. From here, the operations of the church are coordinated for one of the largest geographical regions of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The Seventh-day Adventist education system is the second largest Christian school system in the world. Avondale College, located in Corumba, Australia, is part of that system. Avondale College focuses primarily in the areas of teaching, theology, and nursing, but also offers bachelor's degrees in business, science, and the arts. About 60% of undergraduates are boarding students, experiencing the interchange of ideas and group activities that are the strengths of residential campuses. Every week in the summer months, students and staff are invited to a forum in the center of the campus. The Pulse Forum is devotional, community building, and informative, and wherever there is food, you will find students in great numbers. Ellen White greatly influenced the founding of Avondale College. When she returned from an excursion to New Zealand in December 1893, the search for school land began in earnest. The suffering of Sabbath-keeping families, many of whom lost their homes, led church leaders to feel that the land should be large enough to provide small farms for these families. A farm of 1,500 acres was found in Korumbang, which could be purchased for $4,500. The government fruit expert had given a negative report on the quality of the soil, but high-priced land elsewhere could not be afforded. Ellen White had had several visions of bountiful harvests and even dreamed of a man telling them that the land was not good. She was warned that there would be a false witness. She also dreamed of a furrow that had been plowed and later identified the furrow at Avondale. Today there is a small monument commemorating the spot. After much debate, the whole matter hung in the balance, but eventually the committee voted for the purchase, and this led to the establishment of the then Australasian Missionary College in 1894, a place of training for missionaries.
I would like to suggest to you that in the book Education, she cast the vision for the young people. She said, education is not only preparation for mission in this life, but for the ministry in the life through eternity, a bigger picture. She challenges the people to develop their talents, their abilities for the betterment of the society.
Ellen White encouraged people to go as missionaries to the Pacific Islands. Today, the majority of Seventh-day Adventists in this region live in the Pacific Islands, mostly in Papua New Guinea. Mamusi is one of the most remote villages in Papua New Guinea. People here live as they have for hundreds of years. The only way to get here is by plane, as there are no roads through the dense jungles and mountains of this area. Adventist Aviation Services flies in both supplies and medical staff who set up temporary clinics to treat the sick in Papua New Guinea. The Three Angels' message was bogged in mud or dependent on sea transport in the island tropics until 1964. But then they took flight. These aviators operate in very dangerous terrain and weather and land on short, rugged airstrips, many of which are poorly maintained. A long time ago, missionaries in Papua New Guinea introduced the revolutionary finger phone.
I took a little time to teach Nanako how to operate the machine. After a few strange sounds, he did very well.
Today, a newer technology has been introduced by It Is Written Oceania. Upon his arrival, Speaker-Director Gary Kent met with the chief of Mamusi.
You have given me something very precious from your valley, and I want to promise you today, I'm going to give you something precious in return. When we get the talking Bible, I will come to your village and I will give you and your people a talking Bible so that they can hear the Word of God in Pidgin English in their mother tongue for the first time.
Pastor Gary Kent hosted an evangelistic meeting in Mount Hagen, and on some nights up to 15,000 people attended. Among the crowd who attended the event were 160 villagers from Mamusi. They had traveled over 4 days to come and listen to the messages. They were inspired and amazed by what they had heard. Before leaving, the chief of Mamusi thanked the pastor and gave him a special gift, feathers from a bird of paradise. Months later, the God Pods were brought to the villagers of Mamusi. The people were amazed to hear the Bible in their own language, Pidgin English. The messages taught them how to conduct their lives here on earth and prepare for the day of Jesus' soon return. These God Pods will never run out of battery power and simply need the sun to recharge again. Through Adventist Aviation Services and various evangelistic and medical programs, the church is growing very rapidly in the South Pacific Islands. Kangaroos are endemic to Australia and Tasmania and are an unofficial symbol. Kangaroos have large, powerful hind legs, large feet that are designed for leaping, and a long, muscular tail for balance. These two young males aren't fighting, just improving their skills. The females have a pouch in which the little joeys complete postnatal development. There are 4 types of kangaroo, this one being the eastern gray kangaroo. Another marsupial unique to Australia is the koala, a relative of the kangaroo. Native to the southeastern and eastern regions, they live in forests of eucalyptus trees. Koalas are nocturnal mammals and sleep for 16 to 20 hours per day. At a camp meeting in Melbourne in 1894, Ellen White shared the vision about health and health foods as part of the church's mission.
The concept of a health food business really was formed at that camp meeting. They served at the camp meeting what was termed hygienic meals, and that was meals without meat.
A group of people started importing products from Michigan and the United States, but that became economically unviable. So in 1897, a baker was recruited from the United States, and a small factory was started in Melbourne. A year later, the business was moved to Corumban, where Avondale College was located.
Today, as a company, we are the leading breakfast cereal manufacturer in Australia and New Zealand. We have the number 1 and 2 brands in this market. We're the leading producer of non-dairy beverages. We're the leading producer of vegetarian meat substitutes as well. And so over a long period of time, the business has flourished and grown and been blessed.
Whether it's 5 with bananas or 3 crushed in a bowl. If it's 2 in a smoothie or 12 whole. Whether it's something new or the way you always did.
Another great reason to get up and go.
We have brought to life the health vision that Ellen White had initially when she said that the health food work is the property of God. That is His gift to His people, and the profits are to be used for suffering humanity everywhere.
We've gone to great lengths to bring you the best from right here in Pukekohe, New Zealand. Pukekohe potato and leek soup with sour cream.
Our mission is simple. It's to bring to life the health message and ministry of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in a relevant and contemporary way in our community. We have a mission statement that says that our purpose is to bring a message of health and hope to our community. And we do that in a number of ways, through great healthy products that we know will look after the health of our community overall. But we do that through education, through involvement in physical activity programs. We support a lot of our community through nutrition education, through healthy recipes, through education fact sheets on different disease states. We support our community through provision of food to crisis care centres and the like. And so in a real and positive way, we're bringing this message of health and hope into our community, and that concept of holistic health we have started to focus on more over the last few years through our health and wellness services business. And we take now into businesses right throughout Australia and New Zealand programs that promote health, that educate on health, and to help people on their health journeys overall. So in 2014, our health and wellbeing programs touched around 200,000 people directly across Australia and New Zealand. And this spanned everywhere from offshore oil platforms to mining sites in remote Australia to the Reserve and Federal Bank of Australia. So we have a diverse range of clients and customers, all of which are interested in being educated on health and wellbeing. And so it's a privilege to be able to not only provide healthy foods, but also help them on their health journey overall by providing health information and health education as well.
As the sun sets, the seaside city of Sydney lights up. The Sydney Opera House is especially dazzling at night. In the shadow of the Sydney Harbour Bridge in the early morning, hundreds of kayakers are out on the bay preparing for a race. Australians are people that like the outdoors, and many people, young and old, prefer activities that keep them healthy and fit. Every year, Sanitarium hosts triathlons for children in both Australia and New Zealand. These events have become very popular and have grown in participation from year to year.
We run a triathlon series for kids. This year, over 38,000 kids participate in this triathlon series, and it's the largest kids triathlon in the world.
If you go into the home of Ellen White and enter the large kitchen that was hers, you will see this photo on the wall. It's an 1897 photo showing Ellen G. White and Mrs. Radley at the site of the present Sydney Adventist Hospital. The three Radley boys waited while Ellen White inspected the property.
When we began in 1903, our aim was to provide an environment where people learned to stay well. That's what sanitarium means, a place where people learn to stay well.
At that time, the rural setting of Wahroonga was more than half a day's travel from Sydney. With its clean air, dairy, and vegetable gardens, it was considered a place to detoxify and a retreat, a home of health and healing. Its mission and philosophy was the dream of Ellen White and other Adventists, Christians who found the importance of sharing Christ's message of health and healing. Ahead of their time, they provided health care services for the community, while also actively promoting restful rejuvenation and dietary and exercise programs for a healthy body, mind, and spirit. This was the initial vision and pioneering spirit of the original sanitarium, established in 1903 as a 70-bed facility. The Wahroonga site was chosen to allow for ongoing growth to meet changing community needs, reflecting the aging, increasing, and spreading population. Development of the site has been extensive.
Sanitarium became Sydney Sanitarium at a hospital when it developed a surgical capability. And surgery in those days was not as sophisticated as it is now, but it was an important step in terms of helping people who had problems which couldn't be otherwise resolved. And as we've grown, we've actually increased that capacity very significantly. Till today, we are the largest private and not-for-profit hospital in New South Wales. Our aim has always been to follow Christ's example in terms of healing and helping people to live better lives in a more wholesome and healthy way. At the end of the day, that is, I think, the key to creating an environment where people are able to practice the best medicine in the best place with the best equipment, and therefore able to give people the best possible treatment that they can have.
Patients need someone who cares, someone who can deliver on the mission of this hospital, which is caring for our patients. And they need someone who will respect them and treat them with the utmost of dignity. And that's where I believe our SAN nurses shine, because we have a great mission here and we're committed to delivering that mission to every patient.
She's even sucking the hands now.
She's going. Yeah.
I don't know how it works, how we have this shift which goes from the start to the end, and everybody at the end, every patient at the end is well cared for, technically and emotionally, that all the jobs are done, all the medication charts are filled out properly, right? All those things are done. All those things happen, and somehow at the end of the day, it all works. It's amazing, and there's a certain personality group that makes that happen, and they're over there. They're over there.
Are you proud of them?
They're fantastic. They're fantastic.
So I want you to try and stay as tall as me the whole way along. You can do it?
Your light must not be put under a bushel or under a bed, but on a candlestick, that it may give light to all that are in the house. Your house is the world. The message will go in power to all parts of the world, to Oregon, to Europe, to Australia, to the islands of the sea, to all nations, tongues, and peoples.
During her night struggles, when she often could not sleep, that's when she did her writing. In the morning, she used to get up and work in her garden, but then she used to hop on horse and buggy and visit people in this area. And she became known here in Kurrumbong as a loving and lovable Christian. Let me give you an example. Before Ellen White went back home here from Australia, the members here from all over the country gave an album expressing their appreciation to her. She was known as a mother in this land, a loving mother. However, there was one gentleman in here who was not a Seventh-day Adventist, an entrepreneurial businessman, and he wrote, "Your presence in this little village will be missed because you have visited orphans, families who were in need, lonely people, and you help them and you help to encourage them." So Ellen White, from that personal perspective, was demonstrating what practical Christianity is all about. Primarily, what I understand that she's saying through those writings, casting the vision for the global mission, what matters to God most are people.
Ellen White was as reluctant to leave Australia as she had been to go there. She had stimulated the expansion of Christian education, the mission of the church, including the health work. Her Christ-centered, Bible-based writings and preaching had presented a fresh and relevant picture of God and challenged her church to practical Christian living. But she felt led to return to the United States. Just like the Danish architect Utzon, that had designed the Sydney Opera House and never saw the completion of his work, so Ellen White left Australia without ever seeing the amazing way in which this work has developed. As iconic as the Sydney Opera House is of the country, so is the legacy of Ellen White to the Adventist Church in the South Pacific and the world, a legacy most certainly worthy of her prophetic role.
On the next episode of Revival for Mission. The densely populated South Asian Pacific region is full of examples of enthusiastic innovation in evangelism. Pop-up health clinics, community cleanup drives, and a particularly well-received program where young volunteers exchanged watermelon slices for cigarettes. It all helps to share hope.